let's move on to the Finance Advisory Council. Do you want to?
Well, PMA, obviously the presentation, we met with PMA. Tim is currently working with them right now. We're providing them our data and the stuff that they need in order to begin entering it into the software for us to do the in-depth projections. They're going to present to the Board of Education at the end of November at the November Committee of the Whole meeting. So I think it's important we look at that agenda in respect to that. I think we should be focusing, that should be the first night where we really spend a lot of time on the finance of the district. I know Pam's going to have a short presentation for the C team, just because that needs to fall in line with the course selection process. And maybe I can do an abbreviated summary of some of our council meetings. But I think a lot of the questions you're asking tonight, based off of those financials, which we're going to receive from PMA, will then help us to start saying, you know, how much planning really needs to occur, how big of a issue is this? Going as far as, do we need to look at not only just the cuts to get us to keep us at a 20% fund balance next year, but whether or not we want a balanced budget or we want a budget that just produces a 20% fund balance. And that's only one step in the process. Then seeing the 1 to 3 year projections, and as you get to 5 year, it becomes even a little more blurrier because you're doing a lot of assumptions. But we need to kind of create a 3 year plan here of, okay, this is what we're going to do for next year, but then what are we going to do for years 2 and 3? And some of that will address the questions that, I think Tim asked tonight, Laura asked tonight, Gary, in regards to like study halls, electives, course selections. Seeing those numbers, we obviously will have to create 2 scenarios. If we can't find a way to increase revenues, then how will we balance our current revenues with expenditures? And what does that make Riverside Brookfield High School look like? Do we have to make some of these significant changes we're really talking about?
It's the 8th
of December, right?
So the Finance Committee also is meeting with the Finance Council, I should say, is meeting with the health insurance group provider right now, or our individual provider right now in November, just to talk about, is there anything that we can be doing differently to help curb some of our costs, our future costs with our current insurance program. Obviously, a lot of that is collective, in a collective bargaining agreement, but we just want to see if there's any costs that we can save while providing the same services. We're also working on an advisory council schedule. Tim will send an electronic draft in November to the Finance Committee, or Finance Council, to review, just to talk about when we want to start putting together assumptions for next year's budget, and what type of projections do we want to do. Do we want to do a balanced budget, or do we want to do a budget that gets us to a 20% fund balance or a 25% fund balance, something of that nature. So we're working on that. So as you can see, I think it was mentioned earlier, we have some big projects going forward that these advisory councils need to be working with myself and with some of the other administrators on top of what we just recently talked about in regards to the construction audit.
Okay, any other questions on finance?
Yeah, what is TAO?
These PMA guys.
Tax anticipation warrants.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm assuming that these bullet points in the PMA presentation were spelled out in the contract?
Yes.
They gave you guys a contract?
Tim has that.
Yes.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
They gave us a copy, I think, to look at too.
Okay. Any other questions on finance?
Yeah, can you clarify the last bullet point on your notes, Kevin? Either you're going to do it in November?
Well, what I'm thinking is the board is, the Finance Advisory Council asked to receive.
We said we weren't doing it. He's talking about the TAWs. Yeah, we're not doing. He said at the board meeting.
If Tim feels we need to do it, but right now we do not anticipate that. But it's on there.
Because you said in your budget report, right? You don't feel we need to do that right now, right?
No. Okay.
Right. It was just in the event it
comes. Can I tell you right now is I just want to say something. I'm going to say it again. Excellent job balancing the bills and everything to make sure that they were coming in so we didn't have to do a TAW, so, very, very good. If everybody out, a TAW is a tax anticipation warrant.
So one of the questions that came up in earlier, and I keep referencing that we will talk about at the finance council time to report out is, so what I'm anticipating this looks like is November, the community and the board receive the in-depth from PMA. December, we give it to the staff. We have to, as soon as we return after the first of the year, we really need to sit down or block time on the agenda or have a special public committee meeting with the board or representatives of the board that want to attend to discuss putting together some of these financial plans and how we want that to look, not only for next year but for the future years. And I don't know if the advisory council want to add anything to that.
Mike, Gary?
Hello?
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, when we sat down with PMA, we made it clear that we wanted, I assessed it, it's a tool, it's a quick tool to put scenarios in place. And I want to make it clear that we wanted to have the flexibility to put different scenarios in place. On the same hand, we talked to Dr. Skinkis and Kevin, and we said, you know, you need to be looking at alternative strategies, not just those that were published last year, on how, you know, we need to look at some cost cuts, because we know revenues are not going to happen next year. And so look at all areas and look at all potential things that can be looked at from a cost cut standpoint. And he's starting to present ideas out there. In the personnel committee advisory meeting we had, he started presenting some ideas on where he thinks things can happen. The idea of an open campus, to assess that, to see whether that can have a financial impact. We're talking to the health insurance providers on those things. So he's looking at alternative ideas, and that's what we were discussing in that meeting, so that we can quickly put that in the tool that we're given and look at those different scenarios.
You know, I think, I'm not on the finance committee, but what PMA brings to us is facts. Facts that we can base great scenarios that would, the facts to build a great scenario. Would you agree, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool. All it is a tool that you put in, and you can identify assumptions. Okay, we're going to assume state funding is going to drop by 5%. We're going to assume property taxes, because the CPI is going to increase by X dollars. So we'll have a revenue base. We then can go in there and we can identify those assumptions will be clearly listed, and then we put in those numbers, and it'll calculate out quickly, so that we can have a quick, responsive tool, as opposed to having Tim have to go through a spreadsheet again, throw in the numbers, regenerate it out. It's giving us a flexibility so that we can bring the scenarios quicker to the public and to the community, so that it can be, you know, different scenarios can be presented.
Okay.
Let's do advanced stuff like Monte Carlo or whatever, and give us a probability of.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. It shouldn't be that hard to do.
It is. I'll tell you right now.
You're
Ask
talking
Mike
about-
and
No,
Dan. Do we have?
it doesn't have any.
It's
It
not-
has.
It's not a.
No, but it does layer upon, it does layer upon each year. But it's not gonna go in what if, it's not that complex.
You got to put the facts in, but at least they'll have the facts pulled out of what your current system is right now.
But, you know, one of the things we had an issue with the budget that we were given
Well,
was that there wasn't a clear list of assumptions on what made up that budget. This tool,
Well, plus this
It'll
tool
force
also
you to
give us
do
no, oh my God, I forgot that. You know what I mean? So,
I think the tool is good, but I still think eventually, once we have that data and we share that data, we really need to sit down, because the thing that keeps coming up, even with the building administration, when I meet with the department chairs, and even in our advisory councils, is people want to know a number that we need to get to at the end of this year, and that we maybe need to get to in 2 years. And we need to start talking about how that's going to look. Because I'm sure we have some staff right now that know they're low on the seniority chain. They're wondering, are they going to have a job next year? People are wondering if there's going to be certain activities or extracurriculars offered. All of these questions need to be answered soon. And I know that we'd like to start doing it sooner rather than later. You know, my thing is that I think we need to get a clearer picture that PMA will provide us. We kind of know what that picture is, but we want to get a clearer picture and see how bad is it 2 years out, 3 years out. But we still need to address a lot of the big topics that are weighing on a lot of the employees' shoulders, I think community shoulders, I'm sure on the board shoulders. You know, there's not much that Pam and I don't discuss that I don't say to her, what's the cost tied to this? Or how is this going to save us money? Or is this going to go over budget? Or where are you getting money from to cover this instead of that? I mean, it's the reality of where we are right now. And we'll be able to handle that at the administrative level, but we need some direction and some discussion to occur really soon with the board.
Well, Dr. Skinkus, this seems like a valuable exhibit for an analysis of our situation. Is it going to, and what you said was, there probably aren't too many surprises coming out of it. All it does is underscore the situation, but could this, is there some effect that could happen that would give impetus for a referendum that we're not considering now? Would something, is there a possibility that it would change our minds on how we accelerate the decision to go to a referendum?
I think it would lay that out there for the board to have that discussion.
So really, we haven't decided.
Or I see it also as a tool, Dan, that as we do bring the discussion to the community, and as communities are apt to do, they want to provide input and say, what ifs scenarios. We can quickly present to the community a bunch of what if scenarios. You know, so what if X class sizes is X? What if, you know,
what if insurance goes, what if insurance rates go up this percent?
Right.
Or what if they go up at a higher percent? You key in those facts and it projects out like that, and then you can produce facts. Because one of the things I keep hearing is we need facts. And so this program will give us facts based on the assumptions we put in. And it will do it in real time as opposed to waiting for something to get back in-house or waiting for something to get back from the vendor.
It's going to give us good estimates. It's not facts because we're putting in assumptions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Go before
When, if you want to have them start working by the end of October, when
Well, we're
the
already-
finance committee starts seeing the first report or whatever?
Well, we're already giving them information, and we received a timeline today from our representative that's going to be working with our district. But they feel they'll have this completed by mid-November, so that Tim and I get to review it before we, make sure that it's thorough enough for the board at the committee of the whole. There's going to be some lag time for them to have to put in 3 to 5 years worth of data for them to prepare this for us.
Did you like the guy that they chose, or did you get to choose him, or?
It was actually turned out to be the rep that met with the finance council.
And you guys liked them, right?
Yeah.
You like, yes, okay. All right, can we move on then to Personnel Advisory Council?
I have one last question.
Okay.
Is a school district, what happens if a school district, say in Financial Times, can you not offer a sport for 1 year and not lose it? Can you say, well, this year we can't have, I'm not picking on one, just we can't have golf this year.
Water polo.
Maybe next year we can have it. Does it lose IHI status or?
Give me one, please.
What you have to watch out is that we belong to a conference.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you maintain conference standards. And then if that sport's not in our conference, or is not a dominant sport in our conference, or isn't in our conference bylaws, you know, that's where you could make a reduction, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to personnel. I'd like to get done before 2. All right, personnel.
Personnel Advisory
Ms.
Council, I'm trying to,
Thanks.
you received the summary and the notes. Age group gymnastics, age group swim lessons, those are currently programs provided by RB. So all we're working on with the personnel committee, I've provided them a plan of how we're gonna get them to on a consistent payroll process, background checks that we require of all of our employees. Those are considered our employees. In regards to the swim club, those are not.
So Kevin,
Okay.
the difference with age group gymnastics and swim lessons is we're charging and collecting.
It's a revenue generator for the school.
Okay.
They're employees of the district.
And so these individuals being funded, being paid through our payroll are actual employees because it's our sponsored program.
Right, which is why.
Run under the auspices of the AD department? Is that who?
Correct, aquatics director, and then the AD oversees
Okay.
aquatic director.
No,
So,
wait, he was talking about gymnastics and swim
Age group
lessons.
gymnastics.
that's correct.
Well, the aquatics director doesn't oversee gymnastics, does he?
And the athletic director oversees the gymnastics.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So I said between the aquatics director
I'm
and the
sorry.
AD.
Okay.
So what what we're doing moving forward is requiring anybody that's working on those, like we require of all our employees, background checks and those types of things. The staffing sheets, I showed the advisory council what Pam and I have been working on with the leadership council, trying to align FTE with course request and making sure that we're establishing department averages, so that if there's a course that is maybe a capstone course or an intervention course that requires lower average class size, then we'll have other class sizes offset that to reach department averages and try to become consistent with our staffing and aligning FTEs to course requests. There was the question asked from a board member regarding closed campus that needs to be discussed at the committee of the whole. That's once we know our financial picture, that's something, and that decision probably needs to be discussed sooner rather than later. Because Pam, when exactly do juniors and seniors start selecting courses?
The November 11th is when the curriculum guide goes online. The following week, or later that week, I have it in my calendar, but off the top of my head, they start doing presentations in the classes. The counselors go in, and then and it's opened up for course recommendations can start being put in into, I think, next week for the teachers of current juniors to start recommending where kids would go next.
So approximately like the
pretty
18th,
soon,
the 18th of November?
around then.
So we have one board meeting for action prior to that. So if you want to discuss that issue further tonight, we would have to do that now, or at least make it clear or provide a motion at the November meeting of whether or not you want to have an open campus or a closed campus next year, so counselors and students know what the board expectation is when they're picking classes, of whether or not, you know, and that'll also, we also need to have the administration. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Well, I just want to make sure the administration, when you're doing an open campus, closed campus, my experience as a principal has always been tying that to privileges. You want to reward kids that are earning graduation credits and are doing the things that we're asking them to do in the hallways, after school, before school, with their attendance, their behavior. So, you know, the administration, I'm sure, would want to look at it. Is it something for juniors and seniors? Is it something just for seniors? And what kind of criteria we can have in place, so that if the board chooses to say, hey, we want an open campus, they can at least say, hey, it's students that meet these requirements or these privileges. At the current financial status of the district, it might come back to where the board says, you know, we want an open campus for juniors and seniors.
Well,
you know, that's...
You know, it's interesting.
Aside from what Mrs. Bilesma said about
Yeah.
the benefit to greater class time or greater time on campus to perhaps pursue academic things, there's no personnel savings appreciable in having the closed campus, correct? Did I hear that?
And have it open, you mean?
No, closed.
She said there was no
There's
additional
no appreciable
cost.
increase.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that.
We don't know
because-
that.
You don't know
Okay,
that.
we don't.
Well, that's her belief, though. We
Well,
trust
for-
her that she believes that,
From
right?
last.
Right,
Yeah, but
certainly, right.
only for study hall, but
Right.
we're forcing all the seniors to take another class, so
No,
the
we're not.
seniors that are in an elective because they can't go home early.
First of all, we're not forcing anybody, you can take 2 study halls.
No, but we're forcing them to stay that 7th hour instead of letting them go home.
That's
So if we
true.
force 20 students to take a class, that is a cost.
Not
They're
if-
not in a study hall, they're in another class, that is a cost.
Okay, but I'm just correcting one thing. You can take 2 study halls.
But I didn't say study hall, I
So
said
if you go
class.
into a study hall, but they don't have to take another class, do they?
They have to take something in that 7th hour.
And if it happens to be a study hall and they're
Right.
going into a cafeteria,
Right.
then instead of having 40 kids, has 60 kids, there's no additional cost to the
Right.
school.
So unless all 300 seniors are taking that study hall at no extra cost, then there wouldn't be any additional. But we've got 300 seniors that may or may not choose to use that
And some
option.
tentative data that was
Yeah.
run for Pam and I think we had 12 seniors that had 2 study halls.
Okay, so
Right.
most of them are taking a class.
Most of them are taking additional classes.
So maybe we added some sections, we don't know, but.
we didn't have that many large numbers of kids leaving early either. I mean, I could get those numbers for you. It was, but we didn't add sections, we didn't add FTE. In fact, we reversed. We reduced 55 sections last year.
You'll
so-
come with a recommendation.
Yeah.
It does give you better flexibility in doing your master schedule,
Yeah.
Well, I,
with the potential
Well,
of maybe
It's a
some.
possibility.
The only thing
yeah.
I'm asking the
We'll look
question
at
on, how urgent this is versus other things, because, first of all, it's odd you call this an open or closed campus, because I went to Chicago Public School. Open meant you could go across the street for
For
lunch,
lunch,
and
yeah.
closed meant you
Yeah.
couldn't, so.
Right.
It means they can't skip a period, but the thing about it is, Pam, and you probably know, if the decision isn't made, and people just apply for them initially, and then it changes, they could change their schedule,
The
right?
only students who had the option were the ones that, by luck of the draw, when they registered
They
for
had
the
a
study
study
hall,
hall.
it fell first or it
Right.
fell 7th. And so that's a matter of whether that was a possibility for them.
Right.
because- Yeah.
well, I think we need to.
Laura,
we
so
need-
that was true too, right?
No, because I've had 2 seniors who really appreciated that option their last year. And so what ended up happening is either you have to fill that 7th period. Either you chose a study hall or your class. My kids hated study halls.
Yeah, but her point is.
So they chose a
you
class.
You only have to get to leave early or come late if you were slotted in a study hall, 1st or 7th period.
What the seniors would do if they wanted to leave early, then they would pick a study hall. But if you forced them where they couldn't leave early, then they didn't choose a study hall.
Can I add something?
Go ahead. Kevin, let Kevin add. Can Kevin add, please?
There's a couple things that need to be considered here.
Okay.
One is you want to have this decision made before staffing.
The
Okay.
16th is the date, Dr.
Right,
Sink,
so
is
you
where
would
the
you want to be able to have the
students
board
register.
make a motion saying whether or not seniors can leave, whether or not juniors and seniors can leave.
Is it ever available for the underclass?
Well, you usually leave it to juniors and seniors because usually by
Right.
that time they're on pace to
No, that's what I'm
graduate.
asking, that we're only, before
usually
that, it was
just
only
a-
juniors and seniors. Just
It
seniors?
was I don't know if it was.
What did
juniors
Hinsdale
here.
Central do?
Just seniors is my.
Pam, what did Hinsdale Central do?
Um,
Open junior and senior?
I don't remember. We had 0-hour classes. A lot of kids took classes before school started. So, I mean, I think they could have left early, but they were required to take 6 classes instead of 5. So it
Can I-
was.
Can Kevin finish, please? Who's
Keeps
interrupting him now?
changing.
Okay, please.
Yeah, it's a different scenario.
In my experience as a high school principal, we allowed juniors and seniors.
Okay.
We tied it to privileges. Some schools tie it to privileges. This might be something we want to tie to privileges. This might be something to where you can just say, anybody that's on pace for graduation, that's a junior or senior. We have to probably bring you 2 or 3 situations, and then the board will have to make a determination of what they want to see, because if I'm a junior or senior and I'm going to pick my courses, they need to know up front, like, my chances of picking a study hall, hold on, are, I could get early release or late arrival. This also can help then with your master schedule development, because if you look at your course selections and see that so many seniors picked a study hall, then you maybe only run your senior courses 2 through 6 and only have minimal senior courses offered first period and last period, so that more of those kids get that early release, late arrival. So there are some
Makes
strategies
sense.
that you
I like
can
that.
do when building a master schedule and with staffing that can accommodate those requests. Not every kid that's gonna, there will be some kids that will request an early release or a late arrival, and when you build the master schedule, it just doesn't work for them and they don't get it. And they're stuck in a study hall or taking another elective. But I think what the board needs to consider when you're doing this is have the policy in place of if whether or not we're going to allow kids to come early and leave late, and let the kids choose. Let the kids choose if they want to pursue those extra electives, and let that kind of play itself out. And I think to meet some of Pam's other goals that we're putting on from the district goals with regards to attendance and performance, we should strongly consider tying that to kids that have modeled the behavior and the expectations we're looking for, because then it does put a carrot out there for your freshmen and sophomores to say, hey, I want to be able to maybe leave early my senior year or come late my senior year. What do I have to do that? Well, you need to stay out of trouble. You need to not cut classes. You need to be on time to class. You need to keep a B average. You need to do well on your Prairie State exam. I mean, there's different things you can offer so that, it also serves as a motivator and reward to the students.
Okay.
And if it's proposed at the meeting in our second Tuesday in November, you could work it into the schedule if you decide that's the alternative. So you guys will make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and be like you're saying, it's incentive, this is what we want to do, I mean, very specific what you want to do.
Great.
All right, anything else?
The information's there if anybody has any other questions based on the notes.
Yeah, I have one
I have a question about, two quick questions on personnel. If the honors and the age group people are our employees,
Otters are
Not
not.
ours.
Not
Not
ours.
Swim lessons.
We're separating them.
okay, but all right, so I'll just start with age group gymnastics. If they're our employees, do we run into any trouble with union or union staff saying, I want that job?
I already had the legal counsel look at our collective bargaining agreement. It's not in the stipend schedule. It's a non-union, it's a non-collective bargaining agreement position.
And we can have those?
Yes.
Here it will stay.
And that's why our legal counsel recommended we have them file normal district practices of doing a background check and
Okay.
having all that on file.
How do we know that this, I mean, I don't quite understand it, having been involved with the Otters. They're a separate organization, they have insurance, they have the whole thing, we charge them for the use. What makes us decide?
Well, here's
with-
the
with
issue.
just- Let me finish with
Okay.
just the age group. The swim lessons don't bother me at all, because I know that they could manage that and make money on it. But how do we decide, like, age groups that we should be running the program? Who is deciding how much we're paying the coaches? How are we getting releases from the parents, since it's our program? And how do we know we actually are making money on it, since, again, we have not seen any documents that show what both the revenues and the expenses are for any account, so.
We have those documents.
Yeah, you're making a lot.
And I think the Finance Advisory Council saw those.
I'd like to see one, because I've asked a whole bunch of times, how do you ever know if the revenues beat the
But this
expenses on
is-
any item?
Those are kept in those discretionary funds.
Oh, right.
It's not on a board account.
Right.
But when we were looking at all of our facility rental charges and who was using our facility so much and how much were we making off of them, when I found out that they weren't paying, age group swim and age group gymnastics weren't paying anything,
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, that's not aligning with what we're trying to do. Then I found out that there are programs. They were started several,
Yeah.
I would say
Many
probably
years ago.
15, 20 years
At
ago.
least.
And they've been used, our employees, and so what I'm trying to do is exactly what you said, is try to more or less align that with board policy of, having annual background checks on their employees, a consistent rate of pay for both swim instructors and gymnastic instructors, making sure that there's accountability with the collection process, so
Okay.
we can see that hasn't been done. So the personnel committee met with myself and Tim and the payroll clerk, and we're realizing that there's been some gaps there, and that's what we're trying to bring to light. Where there comes an issue is that, you're right, Otters is their own club. But somehow, a few years back, or I don't know how many years back, because their current president didn't know exactly how this established, but we're running their payroll.
It's been that way for at
Always.
least a
Right.
dozen years.
So
Right.
we're running their payroll, but the problem is that we're doing all the tax reporting on our
Right.
books and our accounts, and they're not really our employees.
I understand.
So what we're trying to work with that is I have our legal counsel drafting up some documents to make sure that we are seen as nothing more than a payroll administrator for them, and that they are strictly
That's fine.
doing all their 1099s
No, you
or
answered,
tax
Kevin,
reporting.
you answered my question along. I was trying to see what was the difference
Okay.
in the structure with gymnastics versus
Yeah.
swimming.
Okay,
You
anything
explained
on
it.
personnel?
Yeah, question, hiring, they still have autonomy to do their own hiring?
Who's they?
The age group gymnastics and Otters.
We have two people, well, wait, Otters is not us. So
You
that's,
keep on saying Otters.
It's
Otters
not
is
Yeah, but
totally
we're
different.
paying them, they're our employees, they get paid through
that's why
us.
we're working to
Breaking
get that
it,
all,
yeah.
because we don't want to have any liability
It says
with
a-
that.
a separation
Age group
of
swim
liability.
and age group gymnastics are following our hiring protocols, where if they want to hire somebody to work after school with that program, they have to have a background check. We're going to bring that list every year to the board.
But-
We're trying to come up with a consistent rate of pay.
So who hires them? Who determines they're qualified to teach in that
Are we
program?
talking about gymnastics and swimming?
Now we're talking about gymnastics and age
Swim
groups.
lessons.
You have the,
Look, we're working on that right now, Laura. We're trying to get so that we have lead persons in both of those
Right.
positions that are determining their qualifications.
Okay. Well, I mean, now that they become our employees, that becomes something that we.
They've been
become
our
accountable.
employees
They
for
have been
20-something
forever.
years.
They've
So
been
now I'm
doing
trying to
great.
regulate that, kind of align with that district
But the-
goal was.
I would say you've got a better, regardless of how it's being reported and everything, you have a stipend for an aquatics director.
Yeah.
He does run the pool.
Right.
And he does hire the people who run the swim lessons, who
Right.
then in turn hire
Right.
the actual kids
Right.
who do it. I don't think you have really a similar structure with the gymnastics that,
I think, Gary, from what, and Dan, from
Maybe
what I
you
showed
know.
you last, we have better than what you think.
okay, that's good.
I have a spreadsheet with all their employees, their rate of pay, how many
Okay.
hours they've worked.
But you don't have like the athletic director by default.
I don't have an aquatic, I don't have a
But
gymnastics director,
that,
yeah.
he takes responsibility
He's,
for that
now,
program.
he's starting to meet more with her.
Okay.
And Art being a new AD, this was a new thing for
Sure.
him, you know, that
Okay.
we have a feeder on site.
okay, anything more on personnel?